Welcome back, everybody, to our fourth Athlete to Entrepreneur panel. This is our first panel of 2021, but please believe it will not be the last. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us. And you know how we get down. I'm going to get out the way so you can hear from this amazing panelist, this amazing list of panelists we got today. We're first going to get this show on the road with my big bro, Mr. Derrick Furlow Jr. He's backstage in the green room right now. I'm going to give him a quick introduction, and then as usual, we're going to get right into it. Derrick was just another kid who wanted a better life. He saw sports, football in particular, as a vehicle that could provide that better life for him. During his time at the University of Tennessee from 2005 to 2009, he played football and completed his bachelor's degree and his master's degree in 4 years. That's pretty impressive. After a short pro football career, Derrick soon realized that football was just a temporary stage for his permanent purpose. The adversity he endured and the challenges he faced shifted his perspective, putting him in alignment with his true assignment, bars. Today, Derrick shares his story and the principles he learned from sports to impact, inspire, and empower others while putting them in position to transition like a champion. Come on now. Everybody, please welcome to the show, Mr. Derrick Furlow Jr.
What's going on, Taj? How you living, my man?
I'm good, big bro. I see you always putting in work. Look at you on the road as we speak.
Bro, you know it. You better know it, man. Hey, it's only right. I learned from the game. We prepared from game to game to game. So in life, man, I get my day going from event to event to event. That's the only way to keep it moving, bro.
I already know. Even on the weekends. Weekends are days off, man.
Hey, bro, the weekend don't end, bro. Hey, the weekend is how you get ahead, man. Hey, after 2020, I don't need no weekend. Let me go work right quick. Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
I love it, man. See, this is why we wanted to have you kick it off, because you've been a shining example of what it looks like to blend work and life, right? That's the ultimate goal of an entrepreneur, to be able to live your life and get paid to do it and have an impact on others. And you've been doing that for years, man. Before we get into it, normally I might say my acknowledgements for the end, but I just want to acknowledge you up front, man. You mind if you know what I mean?
I just gotta do your thing, brother. Do your thing, bro.
All right, man. I gotta let you know, first and foremost, for anybody who doesn't know, you may have heard me talk about this before, but back in 2018, big bro, D Furlow was one of the first people to show me love. I reached out like, hey, I want to start working with athletes. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm gonna stick with this thing. And you, man, you were someone who looked out for me, was willing to get on the phone with me, show me love, give me some tips, some encouragement, some words of wisdom. You told me keep going. So to fast forward and look at this 3 years later, man, to have you on here and be able to interview you on this platform, this is a humbling moment for me, man. I appreciate you coming on here to show love. We haven't even got started yet, but I appreciate you, man. I just want to get that out of the way.
Bro, appreciate that love. Appreciate those words, man. And appreciate you for reaching out, man, and for being who you are, and for leading the way, man, because it's a lot of us that need this help, that need this knowledge. And you took in the opportunities you've been given, and you letting this thing grow and letting your light shine, man. So hats off to you and blessings to you, man. I'm thankful I was able to be a part of the journey. I'm going to play my role, bro.
Yes, sir. Much love. All right, enough about that. We're going to dive into this story. Not just a story, but I know you're going to drop some gems and give some words of encouragement and wisdom, too. I wanted to jump in with how you started getting prepared while you were in college, because this is something that I've heard you talk about now. A lot of athletes are prepared. I sure wasn't prepared, but you knew kind of towards the end of your career that you were starting to get prepared. You knew you were going to have to make a shift. So can you talk a little bit about that? And what was it that had you jump into that space of, I need to start getting ready now before I graduate?
So on the front end, I had a traumatic adjustment to my sports ego and my sports identity. And that was coming out of high school in my senior year when I thought everything was going to be good, to hurting my knee, which was meniscus, and waking up with ACL surgery. So at that point, that was a major shift. That was my pre-2020 to me personally, before 2020 was a thing. That was my personal pandemic that altered my life. And all those football scholarship opportunities and recruitment opportunities magically disappeared. And through the grace of God, door was open for me to make it to the University of Tennessee. So when I got to the University of Tennessee, and I still had this chip on my shoulder, I had to prove myself, I had to earn my scholarship, that's when everything kind of started to just kind of come into perspective of, hey, if this thing don't work out, that feeling I had when I was not an athlete, when I felt like I was irrelevant, when I felt like I was nobody to a degree, at some point, it's going to come back. And I just had a chance to pay attention to those guys that were older than me that came before me, and they end up not having those professional careers. They didn't last as long. Guys went to the league and came back, and they ended up coming back to school. And I'm like, bro, why are you coming back to school and you didn't go to class in the first place? And that's when I realized they was coming back to school because school was a safe haven. It was a safe place. It was a great middle ground. It was a good place to figure out what you want to do or who you need to become. And I just took from the game awareness of my environment and my situation to realize if I don't figure out something, I'm going to be just like these guys when it's all said and done. And that wasn't nothing negative against them, but it just was guys didn't know. And I'm like, okay, either I'm going to be like them or I'm going to have to figure this thing out. So I just started to prepare myself. Okay, what are my skill sets? What am I good? What do I need to know? Who do I need to get around? What type of money can be made out here in life? Because I thought the only way you make money, you was either a rapper or you play ball. And when I realized it's people making that type of money, but they don't play sports, so they ain't rapping, I'm like, what are those fields? What are those professions? How do you get it? So I just started surrounding myself indirectly. I stopped looking like a jock. I started wearing suits and stuff to class. My teammates, you can ask me to this day, they looked at me like it was funny. But I wanted to shift how people perceived me so they could receive me different. So, because the way you receive is the way you perceive. So I started switching up. I stopped wearing athletic stuff to class because I knew I had to figure something out. And this is going into this is my junior year. So I started to get around those people that was making moves, making money, doing other stuff outside of my sports bubble. And indirectly, I had a chance to learn. It was about relationships. It ain't necessarily what you know, it's who you know, who knows you. And people who do business with people they know, they like, and trust. So I knew I had to shift my circle, shift my center of influence, shift some of those relationships, build upon this football stage and this brand that they're giving us indirectly, because people like to hang out with athletes. We make them look good, make them look cool. But that's what's in it for them and for you. So I just made sure it was a reciprocal value. Hey, I'm gonna hang out with you. I'm gonna make you look good. You're gonna look fly in front of the ladies, or you're gonna look cool in front of your boys. But I'm gonna acknowledge, I'm gonna get this game while I'm with you. And that's what I started to do. And that's what I realized, man, it's plenty of ways to eat out here. Not just that, brother. That's what the game shifted. And I realized, hey, it's plenty of ways to get it. So if this thing don't work out with you going to the league, you still can win. You just got to learn a new game. And the game that we know was sports. The game we know was, I knew was football, but it was plenty of games out here. I just hadn't put the work in and been exposed to it. And that exposure is what opened my eyes, which opened my mind, which made me shift my grind, shift my mind. And now I was able to start this kind of move a little bit differently.
Right, man, that's major. And oh, my bad, Derrick.
So that's really what happened on my end, Taj, man.
Hey, Derrick, can you hear me?
You good, brother? I would make sure I got good cell service right here, brother.
Okay, yeah, man. I wanted to touch on something you
I
said
get you
about.
loud and clear.
Okay, I wanted to touch on something you said about how you started.
Can you hear me?
Dressing differently. Yeah, I can hear you. We're having some issues on Derrick's end. That's all right. Well, I hope you can hear me, Derrick. One of the things I wanted to touch on was how you were talking about.
My cell service where I'm at. Hold on, let me get a little.
A little bit. It's a little choppy.
Hold on.
You know what it is, man?
Hold on, let me get into another location right quick. Make sure you can hear me good. Let me move around. Can you hear me now?
I know. That's much better. It's funny, man. I feel like the energy, yeah, it's much better. The energy messes with the signal, man. You bring in so much heat. Yeah, that's a little better.
Okay.
I can hear you better. Can you hear me? Yeah, you might have to get on that Wi-Fi, big bro.
Okay.
Might have to.
See you now, man. It had act funny for a little bit. Let me check on my Wi-Fi. Hold on. How about now?
Okay. Good? It's in and out. This is better. This is good right here. Wherever you're at right now is cool.
I should be good.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay still.
Okay. The wonders of technology, folks. It's all good,
perfect.
Man.
I would say my phone.
I would say, man, it's probably because you were going in so much, it was messing with the signal, man. It's too much energy. It can't handle it. You know?
Hey, I hope that's the case. I needed to calm down there. I needed to calm down, and we got to make sure we share this message.
Nah, man, it's all good. Keep it going. Keep it going. Hang on, let me see what this is talking about. Backstage, just as a host. Okay. All right. So I wanted to talk about how you changed the way that people were perceiving you. You started dressing differently. You started sitting at the front of the class. You started really looking at different lanes that you could go into, not just afterwards, but during. Right. There we go. EJ Cutler said,
Yep.
"How you are received is how you perceive." That's exactly what I'm talking about. And the thing I wanted to point out about that is that I felt like you were starting to not just change the way others perceive you, but the way you perceive yourself. So really, and you could probably speak
Yeah.
to this better than I could. I don't even know if you really knew it at the time, but it sounds like you were starting to shift your own identity, not just for others, but you maybe just subconsciously knew it was time to start shifting that internally. So what was that process like? Were you aware of that at the time? Were you aware that, hey, I'm shifting my own identity, not just for others, for how I feel about myself? Were you aware of that?
Yeah. Well, I was aware from a brand perspective. On the identity piece that came later, but on the brand piece, I knew people knew me as an athlete. I knew myself as an athlete. So identity wise, you're right. I had to reintroduce myself to somebody. I had to reintroduce people to myself, but I had to reintroduce myself to myself as somebody new, because all I knew myself was for athlete based on the title I gave myself. So in that time frame, when I started to change my clothes and I was viewed different and perceived different, I removed that label of just being an athlete, because a lot of times we box ourselves in. So when I started to dress up and dress differently, really what happened was I went to class, and I had this class. I can't even remember the exact class. It was not geology. It was women's studies. It was some women's studies class or something like that. One of them crazy ones. And I sat by my teammate, and we all wore our warm ups. And I've turned my first paper in, and that paper got lost. I turned my second paper in, that paper got lost. I turned my third paper in, that paper got lost, which I had done those papers at the academic center, so they know I did it. So I turned them all in, and come to find out at the end of that class, she had a problem with men, but she also didn't necessarily like athletes. So that moment there was the aha moment. You go to school, people think, oh, everybody loves an athlete. Well, there was some cases where they didn't necessarily like us. So what I realized was, how can I not be perceived as an athlete and people take me for face value for who I am? So for one, I had to internally realize, okay, how do I take myself for who I am and not just this title, this box of an athlete? So when I started to dress different, I felt my energy was picked up different. People respected me, not just because I played the game. And most of the time, I didn't even tell them that I played sports. They didn't already know. So I just start testing the waters and see, hey, could I get into certain places if they just went on me playing football? And when I started to realize sometimes I could, but sometimes me playing football got me in those doors, I just started to use that identity as, okay, I might have played ball that got me in this door, but hey, I'm interested in learning about how finances work. I'm interested in learning about how real estate works. So the identity started to shift in the conversation internally and externally, because they realized that I ain't just want to talk about no game. I ain't just want to talk about who we played on Saturday. Like, I ain't just want to, like, okay, I'm going to make you look cool. We can talk about this. But at the end of the day, I'm going to pick your brain. I'm going to ask you some questions because I want to get all this game from you, because you're in a different world, you're in a different bubble, you're in a different space. So the self-identity or just realizing who you are outside of being an athlete, that identity awareness, and just starting to wake up and realize that you are more than an athlete, that all did kind of happen on the front end. But it was not necessarily identity the first thing that came to mind. It was really brand, stage, opportunity as being an athlete. How can I maximize it and capitalize it? And then, okay, if I put on the suit, do they perceive me a little different? Am I received a little different? And now they see me as somebody else that's been an athlete. Now we can have deeper conversations, more meaningful conversations, and not these surface level talking about who won, how many touchdowns got scored, or who's going to start this week, that type of stuff that honestly at the end of the day, you don't really care to talk about anyway. So it happened. Identity definitely happened on the front end. Was I aware of it? No. But was I kind of cognizant of it to a degree? Yes.
Wow. And so the fact that you were starting to do that work early, or at least somewhat aware that you needed to make that shift, do you feel like that helped you have a softer landing after graduating, some challenges that you went through?
Oh, it definitely cushioned the blow, bro.
Right.
Because the identity crisis still hit me, but it didn't hit as hard as it hit some of my boys, because I had already started to make that transition into, hey, I'm more than an athlete. And when you think about it from a sports perspective, earlier in your life, if you play multiple sports, you might be an athlete, but in one case, you could be a relay person. Next case, you could be triple jump. Next case, you can be a long jump. You're doing multiple things in one sport. So, you're multifaceted. You're multidimensional. On basketball, you can be playing offense. And you can be playing defense. You might be playing shooting guard. You might be playing point guard. You're playing multiple positions, multiple roles in general. In life, you might be a brother. You might be a cousin. You might be a uncle, all at the same time just because you're a male. So you got multiple titles. You're playing multiple roles. You're multifaceted anyway. And when I stopped just thinking, oh, I'm just a football player, you can be a football player. You can be a businessman. You can be an entrepreneur. You can be a real estate investor. Like, it's just a title. So it helped me realize that early. And so if you didn't do that early, a lot of times when you hit real life, oh, I'm a football player, and now all of a sudden it's gone. You don't have those other titles or those other identities, things that you can kind of realize who you are or what you do. Even though that's not necessarily who you are, but it makes it feel a little bit more comfortable if you have something to identify yourself as. Even though we realize at the end of the day, we're bigger than all those titles we give ourselves. But that was a starting block for me.
That's amazing, D. And then something I really appreciated about you, man, especially from our first conversation, you were breaking down to me, not only were you able to separate yourself from the identity of being an athlete, but you immediately went into the mode of, I'm going to intentionally carve out a new identity that aligns with what you want, not just to get a quick paycheck, which is something we talked about a lot of athletes kind of fall into, just to check the box and say, hey, I made it, I got a job, I'm doing this. At the family dinners, I can say I'm working at this company. But you were focused on that long-term vision. You were focused on what kind of life you wanted to live, what kind of legacy you wanted to live, and how you could impact and inspire people. So can you talk about how you started to carve out a lane for yourself? Well, first of all, how did you know, hey, I want to be a speaker, I want to be an author, I want to give back, I want to change lives? How did you know that that's what you wanted to do, and how did you go about executing on that plan?
Man, well, a lot of times, and even to this day, I wasn't necessarily sure I knew it, but it was something I was already doing. So I always tell people, start doing a self-assessment of those things you're already doing, those things you love to do, those things you do for free, those things you do for fun, those things that wake you up early, those things that keep you up late. And most of the time right now it's your sport. But in reality, it's probably other things. And in reality, those other things are probably a skill set or make you unique. And in reality, it's probably somebody getting paid to do those exact things. So what I realized was, look, I was already rallying the troops. I was already encouraging people. I was already speaking and breaking the huddle. I was already that guy. I was just disguised as a football player. So over a period of time, I realized, hey, it's people already out here that get paid to be in front of people. It's people out here that get paid to talk to people. It's people out here that get paid to make people feel good. It's people out here that get paid to help people. Oh, I got those skill sets. I'm already doing it. All I got to do is when I'm no longer playing this game, I can go do that and get paid to do it. So it was already a purpose that was inside of me. It was just, I was disguised as a football player, so I didn't really know what it was. And that's one of those things that once you realize you already got these intangible things that you're doing already, that you love, that you're natural at, just because it's natural to you don't mean it's natural to everybody else. Just because it's natural to you don't mean you can get paid to do it. And then when I started to look at, okay, the lifestyle I wanted, it was one of those things, okay, we played this game so we can change our family's life because we know you can get paid the big bucks. Well, when you make this transition, what other industry can you get into that's going to allow you to get paid those big bucks and still change your family's life? And based off my homework, I happen to have some people around me that was in sales. I happen to have people around me that was business owners and entrepreneurs. So in my head, I'm like, well, they making that type of money. It sounds like I need to be doing one of those type things because the goal is still the goal, change my family's life, help my mom out, get ourselves in a better situation financially. So the goal was the goal. I just had to shift gears and shift vehicles. So it really became, which vehicle is going to let me take me where I want to go? Football got me so far. Which vehicle am I going to get into next is going to get me where I want to go, going to get me to the final destination? And as I started to do those self-assessments and then those career assessments, I figured out what those things that were, what skill sets I had, and how I can go apply those things. And once I removed that label, it removed that pressure of saying, okay, you only can get it via football, basketball, track, or tennis. Now you can get it any of these other ways. Now that you know what the MCAL level can be, now that you know your potential, now you know you got those skill sets. Now you just need to go apply them, go put that work in, go get that 10,000 hours in, just like you did on the court, on the field, on the track. And then you can go be a pro at being an entrepreneur. You can be a pro at being a speaking professional. You can go be a pro at building a business. Like, it's the same concept. It just happened to come to me a little differently.
Man, big bro, I just need to know, should we pass the collection plate around now or later? Because you're preaching right now, man. That's all I need to know, man. Not only that, but you out there standing up in the cold delivering this message to us, man. Like going in. Oh man. Okay. Let me just I can pull so many things out of that, but I'm gonna start with this one. The goal is still the goal. I love that you touched on this, man. Like you said, if you made it to college, if you made it to the pros, at the end of the day, all of our motivation for doing that, for striving to reach that level, is to be able to carve out a better life for our family in some capacity. No matter who it is, no matter what sport you play, no matter where you played, in the back of your mind at some point, it was, I'm doing this not just for me, but so I can have an impact with my education, with the type of money that'll be coming in. And then, like you said, why settle for it? Why settle for it now that I'm done playing? Oh, that vehicle of sports is gone. Why should I just sit back and be like, hey, I guess it's over now. My life is over. But the fact that you touched on the goal is still the goal is huge, man. I definitely appreciate you sharing that because I think people need to hear that. I wanted to make sure that you had a chance to share your actual transition formula because I thought that was dope. And I was, when I first connected with you, that was one of the things that inspired me to be like, I can't just be out here talking about, the transition. I have to come up with solutions. And you've been about solutions from the jump. And so I saw that you had a formula. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put together my own formula. I'm going to use that to help people. But please talk about your transition formula because when I first heard about you and connected with you, that was one of the things that blew me away. And I thought it was so well put together. So if you don't mind, please share that formula you came up with.
Absolutely. And I got in the car because my phone was down. So I'm on the charger now. So if am I breaking in, I'm cutting out, I want to make sure y'all can hear me good.
No, you're good. You're good right now.
I'm clear on your end?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So the transition formula, it was simple. The transition formula I found was everything that I was going through was preparing me for where I was going to. So when I started to realize, okay, it's simple. What can I take away from what I'm going through? Because we're all going through something. And the question is, what can you take away from it? So that became my T. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. What can I take away from it? So once I realized it was always something I could take away from things that was happening to me, okay, if I could take away from it, the next question I got to ask myself, how does it correlate to where I'm going? Now that I know, okay, I played ball. I came out of college, hurt my shoulder. The lead didn't work out. I still got this goal. Okay, how do I get into the sales? I got to pick a career. I want to have something that's going to give me unlimited earning potential, just like sports. So, okay, I get into sales. Okay, now that I'm in sales, I'm having some success, but I'm still struggling. What did I learn in sports that I can take away from that? So that's my T. I did the takeaway. Okay, I learned how to prepare. I learned how to study. I learned how to execute. So those are the things I took away from sports. Okay, how does that correlate to sales? Well, I get into sales, and I had to learn the steps of the sales process. I had to learn company credibility. I had to learn how to pitch people, how to learn how to close. So I said, okay, based off football, we had the scouting report. We did a walkthrough. We watched film. We will review the film, and then we will practice and we will review the film. So okay, I got a scouting report. I'm a walkthrough. I'm a practice. I'm a watch that film and review the film and make those corrections. So when I got into sales, I said, okay, the only way I'm going to learn sales so I can dominate is to take the same principles I learned from sports and correlate them. So with that scouting report, I said, okay, I got the company credibility. Then I know this company credibility. I'm going to actually learn the steps of the sale. All right. Now I learn the steps of the sale. I'm going to role play that with sales individuals that I work with so that I understand how I apply this information versus waiting until I'm in front of a customer. Okay. Now that I don't role play, we're going to practice this thing. How's my closes? How's my posture? How's my body language? How's my facial expressions? Did I say the right thing? How's my timing? How's my voice inflection? And then I recorded that, and I would go back and review the film, just like I did in football. And I realized that I did some stuff right. I did some stuff wrong. So I realized how I could take the things I learned from sports. I could take it away. I could correlate it to sales. And then the C was I figured out how to carry it over. I started applying it to the sales process. So now I was practicing on the people that were co-workers versus practicing when it was game day on the client that could buy something from you. So the T plus the C plus the C was the formula. And if I did that right, I could equal the ST, which is a successful transition into sales. So the transition formula was pretty simple. It was a takeaway. Find out what you're growing through. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent. We're always going through something. Now, what can I take away from it? All right, how does that correlate to where I'm at right now in the present or where I'm going in the future. Once I realize that, okay, how do I carry it over to where I'm at right now and where I'm going in the future? Once I figure that out and I apply it, then I have a successful transition. And that right my transition formula, because this is what I believe, Taj. We either in transition, just came out of a transition, or a transition is on its way. The question is, are you going to be prepared for it? The question is, are you going to let it blindside you like 2020 did? Like, the question is, it's going to happen. It's just up to you to know the formula, know where you're at in that transition and how to apply it. So that same process the game gave me from playing and putting this work in all these years, I was able to figure out how can I take those intangible transferable skills that the game has given me and take them over here and apply them to life as an entrepreneur, apply them to life in sales, apply them to life as a husband, apply them to life as a father, apply them to life as anything, and now have a successful transition so I can thrive faster, go harder, go stronger, go longer than anybody else. And that's the formula that applied for me. And from that point, I was able to show other athletes and show everyday individuals how to take that transition formula and apply it to anything that they was going through in life.
Yes, sir. Man, on fire right now. I'm surprised the signal didn't break up again. You were dropping so much heat, man. And that you're still a baller. That's what you really get at. You're still balling in life. Like, you don't hit people up. You don't knock people's chin strap loose anymore. But you're waking up every day and attacking life like a baller. And that's a beautiful thing, man. And I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you sharing the formula. What's next for Derrick Furlow? What's on the horizon? What you got working on right now? Some stuff may be top secret, but what can you talk about that we can expect from you coming up next?
Hey man, I know we got some stuff we're working on. I don't know if it's top secret or not, but I don't know if the streets know, but the collab, so people stay for the athlete entrepreneur collab. I ain't gonna say too much more on that, but I'm gonna let Ty give y'all the information on that. So that's dropping. We got the online curriculum courses that we're making a lot of adjustments to due to the adjustments that done happened to just student athlete development and athletes after 2020. So we got some major adjustments there, but really being able to take these transferable skills and speak to athletes on the athletic level where they understand it. That's what's next for Derrick Furlow, is being able to touch universities across the country where now we can speak the athletic lingo and actually help them before they get to this point and they transition into life after sports and they're struggling. I want to be more preventive than reactive. So really, man, we are applying the full court press, applying pressure to get the information and the proper content into these institutions that's going to help athletes on the front end, so we ain't got to worry about them struggling on the back end. So that's what we're pressing at, and we plan on taking this thing on every platform, whether the content can be available to the individual or to the organization. So that's really the main goal, man. How can we help on the front end versus react to it on the back end? Because it's a lot of cats when they down and out, they don't care what you got. Mm-hmm. But if you can touch them on the front end and realize the mindset, if you change your mind, you can transition your mind, you can transition your grind early. That's what it's about. So we're working on this mind transition. So the grind transition has the whole structure. That's the goal. So every single day we waking up, accepting nothing, defying everything, and attacking life.
Man, I love it. And where can people tap in with you if they want to learn more about what you're up to, they want to follow your journey? I know you're not hard to find, but how can people get in touch if they want to check out some of the content, reach out to you, connect, all that good stuff? Hey, big bro, we lost you for a second.
Hey, on every platform, is this on YouTube, that's on IG, that's okay. on
Right. On every platform. Just type in Derrick Furlow Jr. You know where to find him. He'll pop up.
Facebook, Twitter, whatever that looks like. And they can check out sportslessons.com or Daryl.com, but that's why I reside in the place. What?
Yes, sir. All right, Derrick. I don't know if you can hear, man, but I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing.
Everybody. Hopefully that went through.
I'm gonna just tell everybody to type in Derrick Furlow Jr. You know what I mean? Just type in. He's everywhere, folks. You can't miss him. But Derrick, thank you for coming on to share, man. I appreciate it. Definitely looking forward to the projects we're working on. It's hush hush for now, but people will know about it soon. And have a good one, man. Be safe out there on the road. Much love to you. We'll talk soon. Man, folks, the wonders of technology, but you see how Derrick was still able to drop the message and bring it anyway, despite the obstacles. Next up, folks, we have Natalie Allport. I'm gonna give her a quick intro and we're gonna dive into this. She might be out there snowboarding somewhere, who knows, you know? Natalie is a former national team snowboarder, athlete, and lifelong entrepreneur. She has over a decade of experience in social media marketing and personal branding in the sports and active brand space. She currently runs a marketing agency called 93 Agency. She's a growth mindset and human performance nerd, and she shares her mental and physical improvement journey online to inspire others to go all in. All In is also the name of her podcast, which is available on all platforms. Natalie's been featured on several notable media outlets due to her athletic, educational, and entrepreneurial pursuits. Please welcome to the show, Miss Natalie Allport.
Hey, how's it going, Taj? Can you hear me? Can you hear me all right? I don't know if...
What's up, Natalie? Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. We're good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
All right, cool. I thought for sure you were going to be out somewhere snowboarding right now.
No. So, yeah, I'm up in Canada. It feels like negative 27 Celsius. I'm not sure what that is Fahrenheit, but really cold. So I went snowboarding yesterday just before the cold snap hit, and now I'm staying inside.
Yeah, smart move. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit either, but I want no parts of it. So, I'm staying indoors like you.
Oh, yeah.
Before we get into it, I read somewhere, I might have been even on your website, I read somewhere that you knew you wanted to be an Olympian since you were like a little kid. Is that, how did you know that? Were you watching something on TV? What was the moment where you're like, I'm going to the Olympics?
So I was 3 years old, and I think it was the Atlanta Olympics, the 96 Olympics. And my parents had it on. We lived in Vancouver at the time, and I had this little tricycle bike. So, like the two wheels on the back, and you can almost like step on the back. And I was going around the house like circles, and I was cutting corners. My parents still have that couch. It was a couch my dad built, and it has the corner cut on it. Like you can see where the bike just like kept hitting the corner. And I was like, I'm going to the Olympics. I'm going to the Olympics. I'm going to the Olympics. And so they knew I was going to be an athlete from that day onward.
That's crazy. You started the affirmations, on a three-wheeler. Like you didn't even know about affirmations yet. You're already speaking affirmations over yourself. That's powerful.
Yeah. I mean, my parents were always putting me into sports and challenging me in unique ways. And so I think that really contributed to it.
Right. And then are you still competing professionally or?
No. So I retired in 2015 from snowboarding. And after that, I actually dove into the world of CrossFit. And so I've actually competed around the globe in CrossFit competitions. In 2019, I went to London, England. I went to Shanghai, had a ton of fun. Then I got in a motorbike accident, hurt my shoulder. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And so now I've just been kind of training for life, recovering and seeing what comes next when it comes on to like the sports side of things.
Right. And I know you started your agency while you were still competing. I wanted to know, like, how did you know that you were going to start a marketing agency? Especially while you were competing, that couldn't have been easy. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, so in the sport of snowboarding, it's a lot different than that type of individual sport is very sponsor driven. It's very different than the collegiate sport track. And so from an early age, like 17, I got onto the junior national team, and all of a sudden I had to get sponsors and figure out how I was even going to pay to go to competitions or get into competitions. The thing about the sport is sometimes you even need sponsors to get an invite to invite only competitions. And so just the endorsement space is so important, and getting those brand relationships and brand deals. And that was where I saw just kind of my hustle of being an entrepreneur kind of since a kid, always out there selling stuff, selling myself, and figuring out how I could market myself. And that was kind of like the emergence of social media. It wasn't huge back then. That was still when like Instagram first started and people were posting like over filtered pictures of their friends playing guitar, like or the randomest stuff, right? And but yeah, I really learned first on Twitter. Actually, I would realize that back then there wasn't really social media managers. Whoever the account was probably might have been like the CEO of the company, the head of marketing, like it was someone important. And so I started messaging companies and building relationships with brands. And that kind of kickstarted my agency, where I had a sponsor who circled back and said, hey, could you do all of our social media? And they knew that, you know, I was still, despite I had sponsors, just paying for all the travel, the World Cups, trying to qualify for the Olympics, all those things are expensive. And they knew that I was like I worked like so many crazy jobs over the summer just to, you know, pay for sport. And so this was something I was able to start doing remotely. They also knew I was doing my online business degree, and that I was always like so passionate about marketing. And I guess like one time when I had pitched them, I had talked about potentially having a marketing agency in the future after sport. So this just kind of allowed me to have something I could do. And then obviously when I retired, it was like perfect. I can go right all into this. I don't have to like figure out that next step exactly. I already have this built, and I was able to get, you know, referrals and clients off that first client.
Yeah, props to you, Natalie, for just knowing that you had to do that for yourself. I think a lot of people, and I'm sure you know this, have this common misconception that just because you're in the Olympics, you're just getting cashed out like crazy. You know, you're on TV, you know, you're going to all these different places, not understanding that a lot of times, like yourself, Olympians, they have to make their own way. And the fact that you had the awareness, I think that just speaks to the go-getter in you, the hustler in you, to be like, you know what, I'm not going to wait around. I'm going to carve out my own lane. I'm going to build these relationships. And not only that, but start your own agency. And then, like, you were taking good care of yourself, but why was it important to you to start an agency to help other athletes? I mean, obviously you went through it yourself, but what are some of the reasons where you're like, I know for sure this is what I'm going to do before, during, and after my competing days?
Yeah. So, you know, part of it was just like rolling with the punches. And so it's just seeing where life took me. And so it's come full circle now where I'm helping athletes. But at the start, it wasn't that way. At the start, it was like, you know, who can be my clients? Like, now I don't have sport. I need to build this business to like survive. I don't have prize money. I don't have the same sponsorships. Like, how am I going to build this? And so I really had to just kind of dive into my niche. And originally it was working with small businesses and brands. And then it kind of evolved to where I realized people really wanted to work with me specifically, no matter if I had employees or different things. And I realized that all my connections obviously are in the athletic and sports space. And so just naturally, all my clients that were small businesses and brands were all entirely in the sport, health, wellness space. And then naturally, even when I was competing, I was that person who, like, everyone who needed help with sponsorship or social media marketing, they were asking me. Like, my friends who are like Olympic gold medalists were like messaging me like, hey, what can I do for my captions? How to, do you have a sponsorship contact you can share with us? All these things. And so, you know, just having that realization and realizing I love to talk with athletes, I love to get back into that space. That's where it kind of came full circle. And I decided I really want to help athletes, especially for me. I think being an athlete who, when you're trying to get to like that top level and be the best in the world at something, it's expensive, especially when you're, you know, at the national team level. That's where you're going to World Cups, you're going to these large events, you're competing against the Olympic champions, the best in the world. They're getting paid to be there and you're paying to be there. And that's hard. Like they might win 50,000 from the event and their sponsors all match their 50,000. So they walk away with, you know, 6 figures from the event, and you've just paid for all your travel and expenses just to try to come 20th place. And so I realized in that space, that's where a lot of athletes step away from the game. That's where a lot of athletes have that financial struggle, and they have to make sacrifices. They can't spend as much time competing because they need to work a job, so they can't train and compete and travel as much as those top athletes. So how can they actually make that jump to being the top level pro, you know, like those top 5 who are making so much money, when they have all this other stress going on? And so that's what really motivates me to kind of empower those athletes, because if we can empower those middle ground athletes, you know, they're past the age where maybe their parents are driving them to practices and all these things. So they're having to pay for everything and compete against these top level athletes and not getting the prize money. Then that's going to keep them in sport. It's going to push the level of sport. And I think there's just so many different areas in sport, especially in women's sports, that can help a lot.
Wow. Yeah. One of the things that I want to point out about what you just shared is how, like you said, you were just rolling with the punches. You know, you started out thinking you were going to work with small businesses and smaller brands, and then it evolved into, wait, there's an opportunity for me to help people who have been through what I've been through. And I think that it's so cool whenever someone comes on here and shares, or just they have a story of how they got into entrepreneurship, how they built a business, was trying to solve a problem that they went through personally. I think that makes for a strong business, strong services, whatever it is that you do. And I feel like a lot of people, when they hear the term, social or marketing agency, like I want to do that. Like I want to help people build it. It sounds like it's easy. It sounds like a lot of people think they set out to do it and maybe they hit some obstacles and they just quit. And I know it didn't happen overnight for you, but can you talk about the work that goes into building something like this in an age where people think they can just jump on IG and put in their bio, marketing agency? Can you talk about behind the scenes, the work that it takes to build something to the level that you've built?
Yeah, you know what? It's so crazy because every YouTuber is telling you how to build a marketing agency now. And it blows my mind because when I started, I actually had absolutely no idea. It wasn't like, hey, social media marketing agencies are the big thing now. I actually had no idea, knew no one who had a social media marketing agency, didn't know it was even really a thing. I just realized I got this client and said, oh, I bet there's other people that need my help. And then obviously as I started getting into it, I realized, oh, there's other players in this game. I'm not the first person to think of this. And so I really had to build things step by step. And now obviously there's cookie cutter templates of here, how to start a business in a box. But I think having to go through the process yourself and learning, it's almost like in math class where they ask you to show your work. And you could just come up with the answers because you're just copying and pasting. But when you learn to show the work, then you can tackle any other challenge. Otherwise, you're stuck in that box. And as business evolves, you might not be able to keep up.
Woo. Show your work, folks. Show your work, people. Natalie's talking to you right now. Show your work, people. Where's the work at? Can you talk about what it's been like for you? It's one thing to build something, but sustaining it, right? And continuing to grow it. What advice can you give to, let's say, a current or a former athlete? They're looking to get into entrepreneurship. They may be lost trying to figure out what they want to do. Can you give some advice around finding clarity? Because I know yours happened, like we talked about, by staying open. But what about if someone has no idea where to even begin, but they know they want to build something that's going to have an impact?
Yeah, I mean, clarity is something I'm always seeking. I think every day when I write in my journal, I'm like, clarity. If I could just have more clarity, and I think we all think it's that magic pill. Sometimes you just have to step into it and do things anyways. And I think that almost gives you some clarity because you quickly learn what's not right for you and what might be your path. For me, starting out with small businesses and then e-commerce brands and all this space, and then realizing this is great. Maybe I'm making all this money, but it's not fulfilling me. And realizing hey, what if I circle back into the athlete space? That's somewhere that I actually am so passionate about, and talking with these athletes and realizing that it's something that uniquely I can do versus someone who wasn't an athlete who can just, run Facebook ads or do social media marketing. They can play in the e-commerce brand space. That's fine. But someone with my unique story, I've realized, can create a much bigger impact if I'm following these things that I'm feeling, the passions that I'm having, and just listening to that intuition. And so I think that's the most important part. But I also think there's so many tools out there for finding your clarity and just sitting with it. For me, some nights it's I'm just feeling a little bit foggy. What is my deeper why? I've lost, connection with that. I'll just sit there and, set out the day or set out that afternoon or that night and get out a whiteboard and just see where my thoughts take me. And usually by the end of the night, I've broken down something. I'll have pictures of all the whiteboard things that I've written out, and I'll have a solution and a plan forward and have really, really deeply connected with my why. And that might include completely pivoting, or it might just confirm that I'm on the right path the whole time. But I think just taking that time to really sit with your thoughts is the most important piece. And then, going out and rolling with it. And if things change or you get feedback, that's the best way to learn and get that clarity and get it more deep and just understand it better.
Man, I love that you touched on that piece of sitting with yourself, going internally, taking that deep dive, trying to figure out where am I at? Where am I looking to go? What do I want? Why am I doing this? How am I going to do it? I think that is a skill. I think that takes talent to do that. Just like Derrick and I were talking about, you're studying yourself. You're studying the film of your own life. And for a lot of people, that's scary. You and I both know, Natalie, a lot of people, they're afraid to just sit in silence, let alone study their own thoughts or understand what's going on internally. So I appreciate you sharing that, because I know somebody who's listening now or somebody who listens to the recording, they definitely needed to hear that. And then just in terms of identity, did you or have you, because I know you're still very much active. It's not like you haven't been on the snowboard in years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You were just snowboarding yesterday. But just in terms of identity, almost, did you have any issues or challenges overcoming, okay, I'm not competing in the Olympics anymore? Did you struggle with any of that?
I had a massive identity crisis of not being able to say like, hey, I am the national team snowboarder. That's like what my parents introduced me as. That's what my friends introduced me as. If I met people through school, through work, through business, like that's what people introduced me as. And it was hard when that was, I would say taken away, but, I made a decision to step away. But, all of a sudden, like, well, who am I now? Who am I beyond this? And the biggest question for me was like, how, like, do people still like me without this? And that was a hard piece. And I think it's something now that I'm connecting with a lot of athletes that have been through the same thing, that they have struggles with that as well, because everyone hypes you up as this, you're this athlete, you've done this, you've done this. And when you step away from that, it's like, what about all these people that invested in me? What about my sponsors? What about this? What about, when I meet people, this is how I'm introduced. Will they even, want to talk to me or hang out with me? Or, like the analogy of like, I'm not a huge partier, but if you were at a party, like what would you be introduced by? And so it was something I really struggled with. It contributed to a lot of mental health issues that I went through. And I was lucky to find a great therapist that was kind of like a semi-pro athlete himself. And so that really helped me through that process. But it's something that I'm still struggling with to this day. And I'm lucky to be in a place where I can reflect on it and learn from it and kind of separate myself from that athlete identity. But, for a long time, I thought that I had dealt with it, but I had dove straight into competing in CrossFit as a way to kind of like, put all my energy into that. But I realized that was also a way for me to still introduce myself as, like a competitive athlete who travels around the world and still does these competitions and almost like an athlete first while I'm still doing my business and all these things. And so this pandemic, and once I hurt my shoulder just before the pandemic, has really helped me with that, actually, just realizing that, hey, like there's actually a piece of this that I hadn't dealt with yet. And so being able to step away and realizing I don't have to train 6 hours a day anymore. I can just like figure myself out. And if I want to step back into that arena, I can do it with just so much more clarity about who I am outside of that.
Man, Natalie, I appreciate you really being sharing that vulnerable part of it too. Because I mean, you're touching on so many different subjects that I didn't even really plan on asking you about, but I'm glad that you're covering these things, because this is the deeper stuff that you don't see behind the scenes, right? The challenges that athletes have in the dark, during and after their careers. And I wanted you mentioned that you went to see a therapist. Did it take you some time? Because I know it took me years to just try to stop deal with everything on my own and go seek some help from not just a therapist, but just people in general, my own family, for that matter.
Yeah.
Did it take you some time? Because athletes are prideful people, what was it like, immediately and dive in? Or was it like, okay, this, and this is happening, and I need to go get some help from someone else?
Yeah, so I did start seeing that therapist like pretty soon after my athletic retirement. However, I would say that I wish I had started much sooner. So actually during my a sport career, some of the things that led me to stepping away from competing from snowboarding were mental health issues. And at that time, I wasn't prepared. I remember I was having these during the summer. I had a couple really bad anxiety attacks, like in public. And so my mom brought me to this therapist, and I remember she was sitting with me. And so I was kind of embarrassed to share anything, especially with my mom right there. And I think I was probably 18 or 19 at the time. And so all of a sudden, this therapist, she started wanting to just dive into sport performance for some reason. I think sometimes that happens when, she wasn't a sports psychologist. She was a normal therapist. But as I start telling her about my background in sports and competing, I think she started to think oh, maybe you're having performance anxiety. And I was like, no, this is something entirely different away from, my sport. And so that I found that I didn't have a great experience that time. And so I just didn't really, want to go back. And then throughout my sport career, I definitely saw sports psychologists with the national team and stuff like that. But those were very, on performance, how to, get over your fear and nerves when you're dropping in at the top of a course and things like that. But I think just having dealt with that before and having time to think about that experience and realize that the mental health stuff actually started before I stepped away from the sport, that then allowed me to right in that lowest moment right after I retired to then go and see a therapist. But it could have been totally different if that was my first time ever experiencing mental health, for sure.
Right. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, because like I mentioned, it took me a while to start seeking help from others. And then once I was able to start getting some help, I went into this space where it's okay, I'm good now. and then I went back into like lone wolf mode. So I wanted to ask you, in your experience, how important is it for you to continue to have that ongoing support from other people and not allow yourself to get sucked back into that vacuum of, I'm an athlete, I got this, I'll do it on my own?
The same thing happened to me. The same thing. I went to therapy for the whole summer. I had it was the lowest, few months of my life. And then I basically scrounged every dollar I had and went to Bali for a month. And I went by myself. My therapist actually said it was a great idea. I know my family was worried, what if I had these panic and anxiety attacks while I was there? But I just felt the minute I got there, it was I don't know, all these personas, identity, all these things just faded out, and I was just there by myself. And I had an amazing time. I did meditation classes, yoga, I joined a gym that was there, made friends, I went surfing, I just explored on my own, and I just figured out I had never traveled not for sport. And so this was my first time just being solo and just doing what I wanted, waking up and being I'm going to do this. It's not I have to go to practice or I have to go to the gym or whatever. And that was really helpful. And so when I came back, I thought, I don't need to see my therapist. I know he gave me his number if I had any issues while I was gone, but I had no issues. I'm good. And that was, I think, in the fall. And then by midwinter, I started getting a few panic attacks started coming back, a few different things. And that's when I went back, especially to my doctor and seeking help again. And that definitely really helped. But I think sometimes, especially for me, I'm someone who has to learn the hard way. And so having gone through it and been lone wolf mentality, and then, kind of getting back and realizing, what, I definitely need some further help. This isn't solved yet. And I think that's a cool part. Now I'm an advocate for therapy for anyone. I was even before you've dealt with mental health issues, I think it's so helpful for people to have someone that they can talk to and share, the emotional and social and things that they're dealing with outside of just work or sport or things that they talk to with their bosses or colleagues or their family. I think it's just so important. And so looking back, I wish that I had just started it and continued. But sometimes you just got to learn things the hard way, for sure.
Yeah, no question. I think sometimes as athletes, we love just painting ourselves in that corner sometimes. And then, all right, now I got to get out of this corner that I painted myself into, even if it's mentally, and obviously, the panel's called Athlete to Entrepreneur. We're here to talk about entrepreneurship. But the fact that we just spent the last X amount of minutes just covering this, that's what's really important for people to understand, because we can get on here, you're a businesswoman, you've been doing your thing for years now. We can talk about that till the sun comes up. But if people don't understand the things that you have to do to maintain, make sure you're in the best shape, you're in tip-top shape, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, that's what people need to hear, understand that your business, whatever you do in life, even if you're not an entrepreneur, whatever you do is a reflection of your internal state. So if the internal state's messed up, then everything else on the outside is going to be messed up too. So I just want to throw that out there just to say thank you for being willing to go there and talk about those experiences, because somebody out there for sure needs to hear that right now. And you're the perfect person to deliver that message. With that being said, sorry, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, no, just I appreciate you bringing that up. And I appreciate you going there with this conversation, because I think we learn from each other's struggles. And so if everyone just comes on here and is crushing it at business, I did this, I transferred to this, it's not going to be so relatable to the people, the athletes who are going to deal with the identity crisis, who are going to deal with mental health, and mental health affects your business productivity, everything. That's the core of everything. You can't do things when you're dealing with these other things, mentally in your life. And so I think that it's just such an important conversation for athletes, for entrepreneurs, for anyone really, and just understanding that it's something that all of us at some level deal with something with our mental health, whether it's just emotional or mental illness or mental illness of friends or family. And that's going to affect whether it's our transition from athlete to entrepreneurship, our athletic career, or our entrepreneurship career.
Right. Absolutely. And now that we know that you are staying on top of your mental, emotional, and physical health, let's talk about what's next. What's on the horizon for Natalie Allport? What are you working on that you can discuss? What can we expect? What's some big goals you got lined up for the future?
Yeah, I want to help a lot more athletes, especially with the NIL rules changing. I see a lot of players coming in wanting to represent athletes, and that's not what I do. I want to educate athletes. So I want to help them be able to use their social media and market themselves more effectively, also mindfully. knowing how to balance their mental health with social media, I think, is also something that's going to be really important for college athletes, as all of a sudden they're having to post things for their sponsors and manage all these endorsement deals. Especially also, as I touched on earlier, like with underrepresented athletes and female athletes as well, those teams might not get access to the same level as, say, like the men's football team at the university. And so I want to make sure that they have the empowerment to, even if they're not going to go pro, even if they're not the first line player, that they have the tools to be able to create these unique brand deals. Because I wasn't the top snowboarder in the world, but I was able to get some really unique brand deals just from, who I was, the things I was interested in, and those were unique to me. And I know every other athlete has something that's unique to them that they could create, rather than only going for the Nike deal or going on an app that's offered to them and seeing, oh, you have this many followers, this is the only, payment that you can get from this brand deal. What if they can get more creative about it? And so that's something I really want to help in. And just also, expanding my podcast. We talk a lot about mindset and high performance, and I want to do a lot more speaking and touching on that because I think it's just so important.
Yeah, I love that you touched on, you want to educate athletes about the NIL laws as well. Just so, and for sometimes I forget that people tuning in may not be familiar with athletics at all. They might have kids who are in college or something like that. So NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. Basically, where NCAA collegiate athletes can get paid for their name, image, and likeness, where that was illegal before. It's 2022, correct? Where that goes into effect?
Yeah, I know there's a couple schools that already, I think like the state laws passed it, but yeah, I think NCAA actually delayed their hearing on passing it officially. I think that was just news in the last week or two. So yeah, most likely 2022, maybe. Hoping it's 2022. Right. Yeah, hoping they don't keep delaying on that one.
Yeah, we're gonna have you back on and do a solo episode or something just to take a deep dive on those laws, because I know you're very educated about that. And I think it'll be good just to even have some sort of presentation on the podcast where you can take a deep dive, everything you need to know. I have some cousins who are freshmen in college. They just started this year, so it's they need that information. And selfishly, I'm I want to have you back on to share that so they can know about these things, because I know you're ballers. With that being said, how can people get in touch with you? How can they follow you on your journey and learn more about what you're up to? Yeah,
so I'm on every social media platform at Natalie Allport. My name, I know it's written down here. I'm trying to point exactly where it is. But that's literally my handle on every social media platform, whether it's Instagram is a big one. That's probably the best way to connect with me. But, TikTok, Clubhouse, LinkedIn, YouTube, all that jazz. And then I have a website, natalieallport.com, and you can find out more about my work, my story, podcast links, all that stuff is there.
Awesome. Well, if I can put not that Natalie needs my cosign by any means, but follow Natalie for all things athletics, all things NIL, mental, spiritual, physically, emotionally. She's always cranking out content, and it's always quality stuff. Some people crank out content, but they're just cranking out content versus everything you put out is impactful, and you're really doing your thing across all platforms. So yeah, absolutely. Like I said, you don't need my cosign, but I'm just saying it just to show you love. I appreciate you coming on, Natalie. Like I said, this conversation, that's a great thing about this. I don't have scripted questions. The conversation goes where it wants to go. And I'm glad we covered some of the topics that we did today. I appreciate you being willing to be vulnerable, drop some gems, and share your knowledge. So I'm sure we'll be working on some projects hopefully this year, and appreciate you coming on and sharing, and we'll be in touch soon.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me, and thanks to anyone who's tuning in and learning about the athlete to entrepreneur transition. I think it's so impactful.
Nice, Natalie. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. How about that, Natalie Allport, folks? Go check her out. Follow her journey. She's doing some amazing stuff. Honestly, by watching her social media, you can learn how to improve your own social media presence, because she's really doing it. Next up, we have Dr. Kevin Johnson. Dr. Kevin Johnson is on a mission to help educate, share perspectives, and discuss the business aspects of the sports world with industry leaders, former and current and professional athletes. During his experience as a professor, a college coach, a life coach, and a business consultant, Kevin has provided a wealth of knowledge in the areas of business and sports. He's also the host of a podcast titled Life After Sports, where his industry leaders, former and current professional athletes share their views, successes, and failures, and provide advice to help educate future generations. Please welcome to Athlete to Entrepreneur, Dr. Kevin Johnson. We may not have Dr. Kevin Johnson on board. Let me check something real quick. Oh, okay, cool. All right. Do we have Sivonnia? We may be able to introduce Sivonnia. Let's see. Okay, we'll come back to Dr. Kevin Johnson. We'll hear from Sivonnia. All right. So while we're waiting for our two guests, one of the things I wanted to touch on, and this is just, I'm going to recap some of the things that we were talking about, because for those of you who don't know, anytime I'm on here and I'm interviewing these great guests, I usually have a page filled up with notes, because everybody's on here dropping gems, and these people are hand selected. We all obviously only have 4 slots on each panel. If I could, I would have 10 people on here at a time to share their wisdom and drop gems. But at the same time, we'll be on here for 6 hours, right? And we want to be respectful of everyone's time. But what I can say about the people that we have on here is these people are hand selected for a reason, not just because obviously they're great people and they're doing great work, but all of these people, they're willing to share their experience. Like I mentioned with Derrick Furlow, when I reached out to him in 2018, there was no hesitation for him to say, hey, Taj, I have no problem sharing my information with you. I love what you're doing. I want to be able to support. And, that's what's important, guys. I just want people to understand that by sharing your story, you can help other people. That's why we're doing this. The people that we have on here, they're all willing to share and help out. Sorry, 1 second here, guys. Okay, next up, we got Sivonnia DeBarros. This is like, I think I might have just met her like 6 months ago, maybe even less. I was on her podcast. Go check that out, shameless plug. Check out her podcast. And she's become like a sister to me just in the past 6 months. Sometimes you just meet people, you run in the same direction, and you hit it off. So before we hear from Sivonnia, I'm just going to dive in with her bio really quickly, and then we'll get to hear from her. So Sivonnia is the founder of SL DeBarros Law Firm, a boutique practice dedicated to serving their clients' interests through business, employment, and sports and entertainment. Through this practice, Sivonnia has handled million-dollar cases, settled 6-figure cases, and helped clients get their lives back through successful trial wins. And all she does, she finds a way to help someone else. In June 2020, she published the best-selling book, What Are You Sporting About? Great book, by the way. She published the book to help pros in business find their purpose and build foundations to create businesses. The book soared and inspired her to release a podcast named What Are You Sporting About? That's the podcast I was just talking about. I was the guest there. Go check that out. What Are You Sporting About? Available on all podcast platforms. In July 2019, Sivonnia published a children's book series called JoJo's Legal Adventures, where she introduces bite-sized legal concepts for children. Sivonnia is also a public speaker where she educates audiences on business, entrepreneurship, sports, and employment practices. Please welcome to the show, Sivonnia DeBarros.
Hi, Taj. Can you hear me?
She got her name on there, Sivonnia DeBarros, protector of athletes. How can I leave that out? How can I leave that part out?
Can you hear me okay?
Oh.
Can you hear me?
There she is.
What's
going on, sis?
Nothing much. You. Okay, perfect. A pleasure to be here today. Oh, no problem. Absolutely no problem. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm surprised JoJo's not with you.
You know what? I'm actually pretty excited. My husband wasn't called in today, so that worked out.
Okay,
that worked out really, really good. Yeah. Yep.
Did I get your intro right? I always try to make sure you got so many different things. You wear so many hats. I want to make sure I didn't leave anything out.
You did. I got a lot going on. The firm, SL DeBarros Law Firm, was founded in 2014. And you got the book right. So the book did inspire the podcast. So prior to even releasing the book on What Are You Sporting About, I was doing, and still doing actually, webinars that I labeled as conversation starters. Conversation starters about all the conversations that are housed in my book. But I realized that the book wasn't enough to keep having those conversations. I didn't want to leave people with the last page of the book. I wanted to have a platform where folks could come together and actually dive deeper into those issues that were affecting and still are affecting many athletes, or even those who aspire to be professional athletes. And so doing those webinars, that's where I realized, wow, I need to launch a podcast. And so did that and literally launched a podcast the very same day that I launched the book.
Wow. Hustling, grinding.
Yep. And not a plan at all.
You said what?
I said that was not the plan at all.
Right, but you made it happen. You put in work. I respect it. I wanted to ask you too. I mean, to go to law school, that's a beast. You know, that I want no parts of that. So when you were done playing ball, was that already on your radar? How did you know that you wanted to actually build your own firm?
So I was around 4 or 5 when I told my mom I was going to be a lawyer.
Wow.
And yeah. And she did not challenge me on that. Years later, we talked about it, but I just remember her looking kind of baffled, like, what? And when we talked about it years later, now, you know, in adult life, she said, I dared not to tell you that you couldn't do that. But I was curious as to where you got that notion from. And so instinctively in me, I just always had these justice type emotions. I always wanted to see equality for everybody. And I just always felt a certain way, seeing people mistreated. And that's actually, I mean, I don't know exactly why at 4, but I think that's really where the passion for wanting to be an attorney came from, because at the time there were no attorneys in my family. I'm the first lawyer in my family. So in a way, kind of making my own Black history, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So yeah, and so initially what I wanted to be was a criminal attorney. And when I got to law school, I had this really dope contracts attorney. I was so afraid of contracts. And attorney Professor Martin Scott, love her to this day. She really changed my perspective on contracts. I even clerked for the Attorney General's office. I was at Cook County State Attorney's office for a whole year. I did so much in criminal law, but my entire perspective or track around law changed because there's so many different avenues that we can support people. And when I went out on my own, I saw how injured people were becoming from how injured they were based on bad deals they made or relationships that had gone sour, and that was my way to step in and say, you know what, criminal law is not the end all be all. I mean, of course, people need attorneys for criminal issues, but there's also other avenues out there where folks need to take law very seriously to protect themselves. So that's what I've been doing now.
And it's crazy that you do that at the age of 4 or 5. Hey, Sivonnia, can you turn the volume down a little bit? It's I can hear my own voice, some feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Right.
Yeah, that's perfect. Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
It's just crazy that you knew that at the age of 4 or 5, because, and even like Natalie was just sharing, like when I was 4 or 5, I was somewhere, playing with toys or playing with Play-Doh or something. And here you are thinking, I want to be a lawyer. Like, what is going on? Did I miss something? I don't know I don't know why I wasn't able to tap in that early, but the fact that you knew that and then you were able to make that shift to, okay, now I want to do more than just, I want to make sure I'm serving someone. You have a mission and it's heart-centered work. And I think that's really important. Like you always call yourself the protector of athletes. That was one of the things that I love most about you when we first connected. Like, wow, the protector of athletes. That's strong right there. It just, yeah. And the fact that you decided to build your own firm, did you know that you wanted to have your own firm as well? Because I don't know much about the world of, lawyers and all that, but not everyone branches out and does their own thing, right?
Yeah. So let me touch on something really quick that you just said. Like, did you miss something? You didn't. I do believe I'm a spiritual person. So I do believe, especially at our young selves, God puts gifts in us. And when we speak them, like Natalie was saying, she affirmed certain things to herself. But when we speak them, I think our special gifts that were put in us, it's designed for our own good, right? And sometimes I think what happens is people get away from their gift. They get too caught up in what other people are doing and want to mimic that. And that's why they're stuck, because you're not operating in your own gift. You know what I'm saying? So as a kid, that was always, and if you guys purchase my book, What Are You Sporting About? You're going to learn a lot about me. But I talk about that because being a lawyer was always what I consider my top goal. That was my everything. My main purpose in life was to be a lawyer because I wanted to help people. Now, I didn't know that it was going to transition to something different, but I always knew I wanted to help people. And then as the eldest child of 4 kids, I've always been a protector. I've always been outspoken. I've always been bossy, always been the leader. So being a protector for me, it's pretty much always been there. And I've always wanted to represent athletes. When I came out of law school, so to answer your question, I always knew I wanted to own my own practice. That's number 1. Number 2, I prayed about it, but I wasn't specific in how I wanted to own my own practice. So God gave me exactly what I asked for, but I did not lay out, hey, from A to Z, exactly how I wanted the thing to look, So I got what I received, and it has been it's been challenging, to grow something that you've never grown before. I have many entrepreneurs in my family, but never a law business owner. So I'm the first to do that as well in my family. So that in itself comes with different challenges because depending on what type of industry you're in, businesses look different. The way you build them is different. The way you grow them is different. The way you find your customers or your clients is all different. And so me as this baby lawyer, I knew I wanted to represent athletes. And I remember reaching out to someone and just shut down, and I just did not, I don't know, the rejection was so rough for me that I just went back into this recluse and was like, okay, well, let me just go ahead and do all the other crap that I was taking just to have clients, so I can actually build the business. And that was the worst situation ever, right? And so several years ago, the emotion came right back up. And it was really after I had my son in 2017. Now, because 2014 was when I opened my firm, had my kid in 2017, but it really challenged what I wanted for my life, the legacy that I wanted to leave for my child. And I really started thinking about what I was truly passionate about. So one thing I know for sure is a lot of African-American business owners have come to my firm, and a lot of them have always been hurt or injured in some kind of way, dealing with some kind of contract or business issue. Then I thought about me as a former athlete, so D1 track and field athlete. I thought about me as a first generation business owner. There's challenges with that. And when I got down to, because I've always struggled with who is my audience? Who is it that I'm helping out here? And it all came down to who I was. Who am I as an individual? What is it about me? I hope this computer doesn't die because my battery just came on. What is it about me that is special, or that I want to protect, or that I want to grow and support or educate? And that's one of the main reasons of how I've been able to leap outside of the fear, the rejection, and just say, you know what, whatever, what God has for me is for me. It's not for anybody else, it's for me. So that's where I am now.
I love that you spoke at the beginning about how a lot of people, not just athletes, but a lot of people, they get away from their gift. And I know you were someone who was able, like you said, from the age of 4 or 5 to be able to stick with your gift, stay close to it, pursue it, never give up on it, and continue to have that vision in front of you so that you can keep executing on it. But a lot of people, and you and I have had conversations about this, I think we even talked about this on your podcast, where, and once again, not just athletes, but a lot of people, I'm speaking specifically to athletes right now, but you can, this applies to a broader audience. A lot of people, they try to latch on to what they think others might want for them, whether that's family members or even something that they come up with, like, if I do this, now that I'm no longer an athlete or whatever, if I do this, then, people will be proud of me, versus like, what is it that lights you up? So because you just went in right now, you were sharing, you dropped so many gems, I couldn't even keep up. My pen was going like this the whole time. Can you give some advice to those who maybe they don't know what their gift is, what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Maybe deep down they know, but they suppress it. because they feel like they can't do it or whatever that is. Can you just share some words of wisdom and advice for those people?
Yeah, and you know what? And they may actually not know right now, because what I see has been a common thread with athletes is, especially those who go pro, it didn't start overnight. These kids have been conditioned from an early age to work on that one aspect of who they were, right? And the one thing I love about my mom is education was always a center focus in our family. We were all athletes. We were all engaged in sports, but education was very, very important. And for me, even through the things that I've gone through in my life, education was the one thing that I knew I could control. Nobody could take that from me, right? Somebody can kick you off the team, but can't nobody take that degree you worked hard for. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I think, first off, tearing down the walls of what people say you are and what you can do. You can do multiple things. But you also have to find in yourself that you are capable of doing it, right? So, for instance, as a jock or a male jock, people, maybe you're the first athlete in your family to even go to college, right? Are you holding yourself back because you feel like you may not be smart enough because everybody else didn't get to that level? You know what I mean? Absolutely. Are you in a class that, you know what I'm saying? Are you in a class that you're being challenged in, and you've never been challenged that way? So you self-sabotage, and sometimes it may not be instinctively self-sabotaging, but because you've never been challenged a different way, now you feel like you're not good enough for it, but you're too prideful to actually ask for help. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of what's happening now, even with the pro athletes or pros who are transitioning after the game. You're allowing your pride to kill your dream, to kill your future, because you don't know how to humble yourself to ask for help, right? So I want to touch on something that your first guest talked about, Derrick Furlow, about transitioning. One thing people don't understand, people think that transitioning is this one aspect in life, right? So specifically for an athlete to entrepreneur transitioning out of sports. But honestly, we're always transitioning. We're always transitioning because we're always evolving. I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer, right? But the type of lawyer that I thought I wanted to be, that's not what God had for me. There was a different purpose that was set out for me. But if I was stuck on that one thing, I would have been into a position that I was unhappy with. And so I've allowed myself to transition always so that I can evolve and be exactly what I need to be to those that I'm called to assist and help and educate and support, motivate, And so I think that people need to get out of, first off, the boxes that they allow other people to put them in. That's number one. Two, don't be afraid to evolve and transition or pivot, which has been the word of 2020 before, with the pandemic and everything. But don't be afraid to transition so that you can find the place that you're happy in, that you can succeed in, that you can truly live and fulfill your purpose. And then three, don't allow fear to take over you. That was my mantra for 2020. Unbeknownst to me, all the crap that was going to happen, fear was the thing that held me back for so long for representing athletes, that, oh, well, they're not going to take me seriously, or, oh, I'm not this big name person, or, oh, I haven't represented, $1 million athletes before, so who am I? We all have something that somebody else needs, right? And if we are avoiding the ability to operate in our gifts, then we are going to cost other people their ability to work in their gifts, because we haven't given them exactly what they need to do that. So that would be my advice.
You know what, sis? I was sitting here for a second listening to you. I forgot I was interviewing you for a second. I thought I was. You think I'm joking? I was sitting here like, man, this is a great show. This is awesome, man. I'm like, oh man, I'm supposed to be asking some questions. I'm almost to the point now where I just want to hear you talk. I don't even want to ask anyone, what do you want to talk about? Anything you want to share with the people? Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sure. Look, I want to say this. So Natalie also brought up education.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing I put in my book, What Are You Sporting About? So if any of you guys are listening to this, go out, get your book, What Are You Sporting About, at prosportlawyer.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Get this book, okay? Folks underestimate the power of education. And when I say education, education can be anything. It doesn't mean that, oh, I have to go to 4-year university just to be educated. I mean, it's a good thing. However, be open to education from other people that know more than you, that have reached different levels than you, who can really provide you with the know-how, the information, the relationships to help you get started. I said this before, that pride will kill us. You know, I represented this one athlete and was unable to truly help him because of the lack of humility, the lack of trust, and the ability to step from behind the pride, thinking that you know everything. As an attorney, I have seen the worst of the worst. You don't know everything. And once you get to the point where you realize that you don't know everything, that there is no, I don't know everything. That's why I have to hire different people to do different things in my business, because I don't know everything that there is to know. You know what I mean? And so the biggest thing that I have a problem with when it comes to athletes, and this is coming from a former athlete, okay? Should I say always an athlete, because that muscle memory, honey.
That's right.
I know. We have got to stop putting ourselves in positions with folks who don't have our best interests at heart. We have got to stop running for the biggest, baddest name just because Joe Blow said that they were the best, but you haven't seen any receipts to help you. We have got to stop sticking with people who we know, even once you find out something, that they are bad for you. We have got to stop putting people in our circles and in our businesses who really all they want to see is you fail. And when you don't be with yourself, number one, get with yourself, find out exactly who you are and what it is that you want, you will not have the discernment to shift out the people who are not meant for you, because everybody can't rise to the same level as you can. Some people are going to have to get dropped off on the way up, unfortunately, right? Because as we grow, some people don't want to grow with you. Some people don't want to see you win. And some people will tell you certain things to create a limited mindset or limited belief to keep you stuck where they are, because they're jealous of seeing you win at every level. So you got to take what my family would say sometimes is eat the meat, throw away the bone. Everybody comes for a season. And when you recognize what that season is, then you're able to track your success, relish in the achievements, not the overarching goal, because it's going to take time for you to get there, but learn how to celebrate yourself at every level, at every step of the way, so that you can truly step into your gift, take charge of that, and live your purpose. That's why this book says, What Are You Sporting About? Because we've gotten so wrapped up in the sports itself and the glitz and the glamour of it, that we forgot about what is our purpose. Why are we even doing all of this in the first place? Because this can get taken away from us in an instant. Being an athlete it has a shelf life. Being a professional athlete, it has a shelf life. That game is going to end at some point, right? And so what exactly are you sporting about? Taj, we've lost you. Uh-oh, something's going on.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Yeah, I can hear you.
It's all good. It's all good. You don't need me here anyway. You're going in. Go ahead. You said we lost.
What stop?
I was right there with you. We lost. What?
We're having technical difficulties. I can't hear you. Taj? I can't hear Taj. We are having some technical difficulties. Taj, where are you? Okay. So he's gonna come right back. Just give us a minute, guys. There he is. Now you're on the opposite side of the screen.
It's all good. We need to have you in the front of the screen anyway. It's funny because when we first talked about this, oh, there she goes. Man, can you hear me, Sivonnia?
I can hear you.
Okay. It's funny. Today, today there's a whole bunch of interruptions, and I just feel like that's just the resistance.
Exactly. Because that's what people need to hear. People need to hear the truth. And I always feel like there's always disruptions when things are being said that can help other people. Yep. You're frozen again. I know that's right. Your support says, don't let the enemy disrupt the goodness. I know, girl, you better preach.
You hear me?
I can hear you a little bit, but your screen is still frozen.
Okay. As long as you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
As long as they can hear you, more importantly.
Okay.
Gotcha. This is what I was saying, though. I feel like when you and I first talked about this, it was like, okay, I'm just going to interview you, right? We're going to do an interview.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm hearing you talk, I just felt like we should, this is more like a keynote. So I don't know where we left off, but wherever we left off, please just pick back up and keep going. And by the way, just for anybody, me neither. And for anybody who's tuned in right now, thank you for being patient with us. I know that we've had some technical difficulties this time. I'm having difficulties talking today. It's been a rough one, folks, but people are on here dropping gems, and that's all that really matters. So thank you guys if you're still tuned in with us. We're going to get back into Sivonnia's keynote right now. Yeah. Here, this is what I wrote this down while you were talking. So let's just jump in with this, right?
Okay.
You're talking about how important it is to surround yourself and not take on everything on your own. When you're able to say, I don't know everything. I need help. I need people around me who can help me win. I'm not good at everything. So I think it would be important just from an entrepreneurial perspective, because this is something that I've recently had to learn myself last year, thanks to Darren Palmer, thanks to the team that's published in 30 days. I've had to understand the power of teamwork and collaborating with others to get where I want to go. So can you talk about, even just from a technical perspective or like an interpersonal perspective, how you went about building teams, what it's like managing teams, how do you even find the people, just all that type of stuff? Can you share some of that?
Yeah, it's a different beast in itself. So how I found my team, so I've hired different people in the past as well, but just using different platforms, especially if you need someone in your business, there are different avenues that you can take to post jobs. So I look for people on Upwork. I look for people on Handshake. Handshake is really for college students, for internships. I look for people like that. I post on my social media because when folks see what you're doing, they may know someone who is interested. And so I just put a link on my post for the link on my website where the job postings are. And so that's how I find people. But one thing I have learned, and I got this from my speaking coach, I'm calling her a speaking coach, is interviewing prospects. I've never, not interviewing, testing your prospects. I've never tested people, right? And so now what I'm starting to do is give people a 1 or 2 week test to see how they perform on certain tasks, because I need people that can come in who already embody certain skills, because I just don't have the time to sit and micromanage people. I am not a micromanager, but I am a boss. When I ask you to do something, I need it to be done and can trust that it's done. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yeah, I have implemented that in my business, and that is going to be amazing. But being an athlete and coming from a team atmosphere perspective, folks should already understand that you couldn't operate the team by yourself. Like, even if you were an individual sport like I was, it still took everybody's points to make the team great, right? We all had a job to do. We all had a skill, but it still took all of us together to have a win. And so when you go into business with this idea of I'm just going to do it all, first off, you're going to get burnt out. 2, like I said, you don't know what you don't know. And 3, if you don't have other people around you that can run interference or take care of the small issues that take up too much time, you're not going to have enough time to actually work in the substantive areas of the business that really need your support, right? And so what I've seen, and especially I'm going to do a little legal plug here, but what I've seen a lot of is business owners and even some athletes have come to me without any type of legal protections. They've never had lawyers. They have a bad mindset around money and how much they want to spend on lawyers, but then people go out there and spend thousands or millions of dollars on crap that's not even translating into any form of return, right? And so people, I don't know what it is, but people are willing to invest in the crap that's not going to secure their future. And it just doesn't make sense. And so what I will say for any athlete, whether you are a college athlete, current pro, or someone who has now left the pro sport, is think about exactly what type of business you have. Go get you a lawyer, right? Go and find you a lawyer who can support. And this may mean that you need maybe more than a few lawyers, because depending on the industry that you're in, you're going to need to make sure you have the right team around you that can advise you. And many times you can, your lawyer can run interference with issues that actually may pose a problem to your business before it gets out of hand. And so if you put that in place, that will definitely help you and save a lot of money on the back end, so you don't have to end up in court fighting over what's yours and what somebody took from you. But find out who's good at what they're doing. What is it that you really want to do? Don't feel like you owe people something to keep folks around you, the posse, that have no skills to provide you. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Like, I got to give a plug to LeBron James, because this guy has a completely different mindset on another galaxy, dude. He took his entire posse. He was like, look, if y'all want to be a part of my business, then you need to get educated. That takes me back to education. You have to get educated, because I don't need you trying to run my business or my empire without having the right knowledge, right? And he invested into his people to get the proper knowledge. We have got to stop feeling like we owe people something to keep them on a team that they have no business being on. So that would be my advice.
Man, see, I know you call yourself the protector of athletes, but see, this is the thing about Sivonnia, folks. She will protect you. She'll make sure you're good. You're checking all the boxes, but she's going to get on you too. Right?
Yeah,
there's no sugarcoating it. You're going to get pressed. Please believe you will get pressed. While you're being protected, you will get pressed. So just know.
That is the truth. That is the truth. Yes. I talk to all of my clients the same way, because people need to know who I am. I've never been able to be unauthentic. Authentic. I've always been authentic. I can't be anything else, right? And so this is who I am. This is what you get. And that's what you need to be looking for in the people who are supposed to help you build your business, or to help you protect your business, or help you protect whatever dream or brand that it is. You need to make sure you actually know who these people are, right? Do they really have my best interest at heart, or is there an ulterior motive that they're setting up to just basically play me for? And we all have heard this fiddle over and over again, right? Honestly, I'm a little bit tired of it by this point. We should know better. We should know better. And so it is time to do better. When you know better, it is time to do better.
That's right. That's a perfect way to wrap it up. When you know better, it's time to do better.
Yes.
Sivonnia, we can have you on here for another few hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. You've already shared so much already. Please tell people, if you, after hearing this, if you don't go check out Sivonnia's podcast, I don't know what's wrong with you. And just please tell people how they can get in touch, where they can learn more about what you're doing, how they can support the mission, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. For legal services, you guys can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter at SL DeBarros Law. That's SL DeBarros Law. So you see my last name up here and just put SL in front of it. For What Are You Sporting About, the podcast, the book, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at What Are You Sporting About. And look, for anybody who want to understand what their contract says, I'm actually launching a course in February. It's going to be live. So you can ask me questions. And what we're going to do is go through each major provision of a contract and break it down on what it actually means. And if your contract is set up for you, or is it set up to hurt you if something was to happen? And so you can go to my website and sign up for that as well. I'll actually send Taj a link too, so that you guys can get 50% off for that course if you're interested in that. Get your book, What Are You Sporting About? Okay, at prosportlawyer.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And go to Pro Sport Lawyer, sign up for my newsletter so that you can be in the know when I drop my new book that is launching this summer. Name, Image, and Likeness, Have Your Say. That's SAE, the Student Athlete Entrepreneur's Game Plan. Y'all don't want to miss that.
That's right. They don't want to miss anything that you're doing, Sivonnia. So everybody, if you tuned in, please go check out Sivonnia, support what she's doing. Make sure you're protected. Make sure all your bases are covered. Go soak up some of the knowledge. She's constantly cranking out quality stuff that you make sure you don't want to miss. Sivonnia, thank you for coming on. Despite all the obstacles,
It's okay.
And you still drop gems anyway. And to everybody listening, thank you for tuning in with us. Thank you for being patient. I know you were able to get some gems out of this today. We're going to have many more of these panels. We'll be hearing from Sivonnia again at some point, I'm sure, on the panel. And everybody, you have a wonderful weekend. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to get on out of here. Let Sivonnia get back to work and work on all the projects she's working on. But we appreciate you guys tuning in to another Athlete to Entrepreneur event. We'll be back next month. So stay tuned for that. Love you guys. Peace. Bye,
Thanks
Sivonnia.
for having me, Taj.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.